Hi everybody. Welcome to our channel, The Scary Tales. Our scary and horror stories are designed to send chills down your spine. Enjoy the spine-tingling stories thrill. Here's your horror stories about morgue mystery. 1. The Silent Witness. A morgue worker, Jack, is alone on a quiet night shift. The building is eerily still, and the only sound is the hum of the fluorescent lights. Suddenly, soft, low whispers begin to emanate from one of the storage units. Jack, thinking it's just his imagination, ignores it. But when the whispers grow louder, he becomes uneasy. He opens the unit and finds the body of a man who died a few hours earlier, with his hands pressed against the glass, his lips barely moving, as if trying to say something. In a panic, Jack checks the autopsy report but finds no signs of trauma. Terrified, he tries to leave, but the whispers follow him down the hall, growing louder and louder, until he's nearly suffocated by the feeling of being watched. 2. The Unclaimed. A body is brought in under unusual circumstances. It is unidentified, with no visible injuries and no records at the police station. The body is placed in the cooler, but the next morning, the worker, Sarah, finds that it has shifted from its original position. At first, she thinks someone has been tampering with it, but this happens again the next day, and then the day after that. One night, she's finishing her shift when she notices that the body has moved again. She looks into its face and is horrified to see its eyes wide open, staring straight at her. Before she can react, the body's hand shoots out of the table and grips her wrist with a cold, deathly touch. She tries to pull away, but the grip tightens as if the body is alive. The last thing she remembers is the body's chilling whisper, "Help me." 3. The Watcher. Tom, a new morgue employee, is getting accustomed to his job, but he quickly notices something strange in the security footage. A man, tall and thin, with a gaunt face, standing motionless in the morgue at precisely 2 a.m. Every night, the body storage rooms are locked, so no one could possibly get inside. Tom assumes it's a glitch and ignores it. But night after night, the figure returns. One evening, Tom decides to investigate and, after watching the camera feed, heads to the morgue. The lights flicker, and as he steps inside, the air grows cold. In the corner, standing as still as a statue, is the figure. He moves closer, his heart pounding, only to realize the figure is not a living person, but the corpse of a man whose autopsy had been interrupted years ago. The body's eyes snap open, and Tom hears the chilling sound of slow, deliberate footsteps behind him. 4. The Autopsy Horror. Dr. Evans has performed countless autopsies, but one case shakes him to his core. A woman, brought in after a brutal accident, is scheduled for autopsy. When Dr. Evans opens her chest, everything seems normal, until he notices that her internal organs appear to be completely unscathed. She had been reported dead for hours, but there is no sign of decomposition. As he carefully examines her body, her eyes suddenly snap open, and she lets out a loud, terrified scream. The room grows frigid, and her body jerks as if alive, trying to sit up on the cold table. Dr. Evans, frozen in terror, watches as she dies again in front of him, this time for good. When the paramedics arrive to take her away, they tell him there was no medical reason for her revival, only that something very dark had happened in that morgue. 5. The Morgue Shift. Dylan, a fresh-faced, eager morgue attendant, is spending his first night shift alone in the morgue. At first, everything seems uneventful, until he begins hearing footsteps from the far corner of the room. Thinking it's just his nerves, he brushes it off. But then, the shadows on the walls start to move in strange patterns, stretching unnaturally, as if something is lurking just out of sight. When he hears a faint whisper, "Help me," from behind one of the refrigerated units, he turns around, only to find one of the bodies, a tall man with dark, hollow eyes, sitting up on its slab. The body's head slowly swivels to face him, its lips curling into a grotesque smile, and Dylan's heart races as the figure reaches toward him, slowly inching closer. 6. The Cold Touch. Maria, a morgue employee for over 20 years, prides herself on her professionalism and detachment. However, on a particularly cold night, she is transferring a new body into the storage area when she feels a sudden, icy hand grab her wrist. The touch sends a cold shiver down her spine. She looks down, thinking she accidentally touched one of the bodies, but the body she's working with is still lifeless on the table. The grip tightens. She jerks her arm back, but it doesn't release. As she pulls away with all her strength, the body shifts slightly, and Maria catches a glimpse of its eyes, wide open, filled with terror. With a gasp, she realizes the body is not as lifeless as it seems. 7. The Corpse That Reached Out. A body arrives at the morgue under strange circumstances. No injuries, no cause of death, and no records to indicate who it was. The worker, Nathan, goes through the motions, but as the night progresses, he notices that the body is no longer in the same position. First, its head is turned to the side, then its arms seem to reach out toward him. When Nathan checks the body to make sure it's still dead, he sees its fingers twitch and the legs move. The morgue lights flicker, and Nathan is overwhelmed with the sensation that something is very wrong. As he backs away, the corpse's hand reaches out to grab his wrist, pulling him closer with terrifying strength. Panicking, Nathan manages to break free, but the last thing he sees before running out is the body slowly sitting up, its face twisted in an expression of rage. 8. The morgue's secret. Maggie, a morgue attendant, stumbles upon an old, forgotten file hidden in a back room. It details the case of a woman who died while in the morgue's care, though the official report says she was dead upon arrival. Maggie digs deeper and uncovers disturbing evidence suggesting the woman had been alive when brought in. As she reads further, she discovers that the woman had been the victim of a dark ritual gone wrong, and her body had been hidden away to avoid scandal. That night, Maggie hears footsteps echoing through the hallways of the morgue. When she investigates, she finds the woman's body missing, and a chilling presence lurks in the shadows. Maggie's life spirals as she starts seeing the woman's ghost, who demands Maggie uncover the truth before it's too late. 9. The Stalker. John, a morgue worker, starts to notice that the bodies in the viewing room are changing expressions. The most unsettling thing is the way they stare at him, their eyes following his every move. One night, while locking up, he sees a shadow move across the corner of the room. Thinking it's a trick of the light, he dismisses it. But the next night, the same man, a body that had been in the morgue for weeks, appears to be standing, his eyes fixed directly on John. As John approaches, he hears a voice whisper his name. The man's body suddenly jerks upright, and John's blood runs cold as he realizes the man is alive, still trapped in his dead form, calling out for release. 10. The Haunted Morgue. The morgue is old, housed in a decrepit building that was once a hospital. One night, Alex, a new employee, ventures into the basement after hearing strange noises. He discovers a hidden room with dozens of old, untouched bodies. Their faces are frozen in expressions of horror, and their bodies seem to twitch with every passing second. As Alex examines the room, the air grows thick with the scent of decay, and he begins to hear voices murmuring in the distance. Suddenly, the room goes dark, and when the lights return, Alex finds that the bodies are now moving. The spirits of the dead, trapped for decades, now have a chance to release their torment, and Alex is their first victim. He tries to escape, but the door slams shut, locking him inside with the restless souls.